What's going on, you gamers? Today we're going over a little bit of Evil Dead the game, and today what we're covering is this fella right here, a nice build for Henry the Red. So if you want to be a warrior that can tank and spank, then stay tuned, that's coming up next. Welcome back, you guys and girls. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon? I bring you all the latest and greatest content, hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay and reviews of upcoming games. But for today I'm here to go over Henry the Red, and a build that I think really suits him down to the ground. Now before I go over these builds, I will make sure I get them to level 25 and have play tested a lot of different variations of their builds in order to see which one I think's best. With this fella, this right here seems to be his bread and butter, and I'll go over why. I think there'll be quite a few people that make some mistakes with Henry the Red, or not mistakes, but he might be a little bit harder to use if you set him up in a variation of this. Now Henry the Red, his main reason to be using him is just down the side here. He's tanky as heck, he really is. He can take an absolute beating, and he's probably one of the best in the game if you just need to focus on a boss and such. So his first skill is this one right here, Unstoppable. Activating this ability temporarily prevents damage to health or shield. Basically it's an invulnerable that lasts 7 seconds but has a 60-second cooldown. I really wish this was a little bit lower, to be fair, as if it was I think it would be kind of game changing, but even at 60 seconds it can be amazing and can get you to win in some situations. I'd say most notable if, for example, a hunter or someone with a high damage weapon, say they've picked up a legendary drop, gets possessed. If you're this fella, you may well be the only one that can kind of go invulnerable and take them out before they completely wipe your team. I've done it once already, and if I hadn't had this, I would have got 1 or 2 shot, just because some of the hunters do so much damage. Next up, and we've got shields up. Start the match with an additional shield bar. This is okay solo. In a team, in the right team, this can be quite game changing. Say for example you've got a Cheryl or you've got a Pablo, this can really help you out if they're chucking you those shields constantly. If however you've got to rely on yourself, it's not quite as good, but still a nice extra start as a passive. Just down here and we've got Rebound, reflects a percentage of the damage you receive back onto the attacker. This one is nice, you don't notice it, it just happens, it gets you a bit of extra damage, it's really good and it's going to boost your score at the end. Ultimately though, it's not going to be a game changer, and even though you would think 30% is amazing, it's not going to be the reason you pick this character. Just down the bottom here, adding to his overall tankiness, is going to be Battle Hardened, increases your maximum health and shield bar length. This is one of the reasons you're going to want to pick this guy. If you want an absolutely chunky health pool, this is the guy for you. If you want more shields than anyone else, this is the guy for you. As standard, he's going to have higher HP, higher shields than anyone else in the game. Amazing, and one of the best tanks currently in the game, especially when you pair it with his very first ability, which is obviously that invulnerable. Now going over to his skill tree, and I am probably going to do this to every single person who's out there differently, so let me explain why I've done it. A lot of people I think will be going straight along and just making this guy a complete absolute tank. So they'll bop along and they'll give him reinforced amulet, which means your incoming damage is reduced when you have an active shield. If you are going to take this, only put up to the 3rd one. I'd see no point putting on the 4th one because you only get a 2% increase. However, to get to the 3rd one, it's going to take you 3 skill points. That's quite a lot of skill points for something that you may well not have up constantly, depending on your team layout. Again, improved amulet, increases the length of your shield bars. This one I would have loved to have picked up. I really would. I must admit I would love to get that to the 10%. That can help you out massively. Like I said, if you've got a Cheryl or something, or a Pablo, then this could really come into play. But it's not for every situation, it's not for every game, and you'd have to have a perfect setup in order for this to be amazing. Also, making my way along, if I'm going to be taking Seasoned Survivor to get the extra damage reduction from the elites, if I'm going to be taking this one right here from the basic units, or this one right here from the boss unit, you have to invest a lot of skill points along trees that you probably don't want to much, to be perfectly honest. Also, the main reason I've done this skill tree this way, if you do him completely tanky, he hits like a wet sponge. You really don't want him to. You want to be able to pop that invulnerable and take out every ad that is around, clear them all out, or focus on the boss and take a big chunk of damage off of him, maybe in some cases even completely annihilating him. If you don't hit hard whatsoever, this guy is in your team as a bit of a sponge, doesn't have any real support abilities, doesn't have a taunt. He's not going to be the best guy in your team. He's just going to be the guy that's trying to keep himself alive. So what we've got free and last word in order to get that 50% extra damage on our combos. This is really nice and can help us get some nice combo damage. Jumping down from here, we've got Artful Dodger. Believe it or not, even one in this really helps you out. So we've chucked one in it just for the 15% extra stamina cost reduction. Over from here, Industrial Strength. I've got 3 in this. If you want to put 4 in, that can very well work in this build perfect as well. I've put a little bit more into the damage variation, but if you want to chuck 4 in this to get 25% max health rather than the 20 I have, you very well can. Jumping down to our next one, and we've got Devastating Force. This one right here is going to increase your melee weapon damage. This guy is never going to light the world on fire with range, don't even bother too much with it. If you pick up a nice weapon, you might be able to chuck it in every once in a while with a couple of shots, but ultimately we want him to have a big chunky two-hander. Preferably a sword, if not you're going to be making sure you pick up a sledgehammer. Just down here we've got Seeing Stars, increases the balance bar damage from your melee attacks by 10%. Just down here, another one to Blunt Force Trauma, increases the balance bar damage from blunt weapons by 15%. That leads us on to the next one, giving us those big heavy chunky melee attacks with the Heavy Hitter. Increased damage with heavy melee attacks by 15%. Yes, before anyone says it, I know I say melee wrong, it's melee, I always say it that way, I can't help it, apologies. Swiftly moving on, Tougher Than Hell reduces the amount of damage you receive. You want to have this in your build, you want to have a bit of tankiness. You've already got over here a lot of health, a lot of shields. We've picked up the extra health from here, and down here you're going to have 10% guaranteed reduction. Works out perfect, makes you very survivable, but without the actual deficit of taking away from any of the damage. Jumping down to the bottom one, and you've got Fighting Shape. I would love to put this up to 15, but ultimately it's just very unreliable. You would have to be in a perfect team with constant shields in order for this 15% to be constantly up. Increase the melee damage you deal when your health is above a certain threshold. Even at the top end, you've got to have 95% of your health. 15% is a lovely damage increase, but not when it's not going to be around most times because you're taking a beating. Jumping over to the next, we've got Stunning Strikes. Increases the balance bar damage from your heavy melee attacks. Like I said, you are going to be swinging for the fences. On Xbox is the right trigger, you're going to be tapping that over and over again in order to kind of hit multiple targets, because you've got quite a bit of range on those long two-handed weapons. Just over here, unfortunately I've had to pick Weapon Master, so it's kind of a wasted slot. You don't ever want to pick up one-handed weapons. But I did want to get to the last one and increase my two-handed weapons damage, giving us 15% if we chuck 3 into this. Ultimately, this right here is going to make him still very viable. You've got your invulnerable, you've got high health, you've got a fair chunk of shields. Also now you've got a fair chunk of balance bar damage, meaning you can go into your finishers easy if you're in a bad situation and you need to get any iframes, or just finish an enemy off. And you can also dish out a lot of damage to a lot of multiple targets. This guy, without this build, when I tested him as a tank, was hitting round about a third the damage of an Army of Darkness Ash. I really didn't want that, so I've set him up like this and it worked out much better. If you're looking for a character that is just crazy tanky and you want that invulnerable, this is the guy for you. But just remember, he's the only one out of the warriors that doesn't have anything built in to raise his damage on the left hand side here with his perks and such. So you definitely want to factor some damage in your skill tree, otherwise you're going to be lacking in those games and find yourself struggling on those boss encounters. Well, you gamers, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out and you'll understand why I've done the skill tree this way. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you all next day.